All right. Masi sotene. Sela denize nakeko suje. Welcome, everybody. My name is Denize Nakiko. Welcome to the Northern Arts and Cultural Center. We're in for a treat tonight. This is the first time the Massey Lectures will be taking place here in the North and in Yellowknife, so I think that's pretty cool, and I'm honored and privileged to be a part of it, and I'm glad that all of you showed up too. But before we go on, I'm going to ask Paul Andrew to come up. I work for CBC. I'm sometimes on North Beat, but Paul's going to come up here and bring the real North Beat and do a little traditional Dena prayer song from Toledo.
Well, thank you so much, Denize, and both to Paul Kennedy and Paul Andrew. I'd like to thank both of them, and of course, thank you at Yellowknife for having me with you. You know, one of the intense pleasures of travel is the opportunity to live amongst those who have not forgotten the old ways, who still feel their past in the wind, touch it in stones polished by rain, taste it in the bitter leaves of plants. And just to know that in the Amazon, jaguar shamans still journey beyond the Milky Way, or that in the high Arctic, the myths of the Inuit elders still resonate with meaning, or that in the Himalaya, the Buddhists still pursue the breath of the Dharma, is to remember the central revelation of anthropology, and that is the idea that the world into which you were born does not exist in some absolute sense, but is just one model of reality, the consequence of one particular adaptive and intellectual choices that your lineage made, however successfully, many generations ago. But whether we travel with a nomadic Panan in the rainforests of Borneo, a voodoo acolyte in Haiti, a curandero in the Andes of South America, or a yak herder on the slopes of Chomolungma, all of these peoples teach us that there are other options, other possibilities, other ways of thinking and orienting yourself in social and spiritual space, other ways of interacting with the earth itself. And this is an idea that, if you think about it, can only fill you with hope. Now, together, the myriad of cultures of the world make up an intellectual and a spiritual web of life that envelops the planet and is every bit as important to the well-being of the planet as is the biological web of life that you know as a biosphere. And you could think of this social web of life as being an ethnosphere. And you could define the ethnosphere perhaps most appropriately as a sum total of all thoughts and intuitions, myths and beliefs, ideas and inspirations brought into being by the human consciousness since the dawn of our existence. The ethnosphere is humanity's greatest legacy. It is the product of our dreams, the embodiment of our hopes, and the symbol of all that we've created as a wildly imaginative and creative species. And just as the biosphere, the biological matrix of life, is being severely eroded by the destruction of habitat and the resultant loss of plant and animal life, so too is the ethnosphere, only at a far greater rate. No biologist, for example, would suggest that 50% of all species are moribund or on the brink of extinction, because it simply is not true. And yet this, the most apocalyptic scenario in the realm of biological diversity, scarcely approaches what we know to be the most optimistic scenario in the realm of cultural diversity. And the great indicator, of course, the canary in the coal mine, if you will, is language loss. A language, of course, is not merely a set of grammatical rules or a vocabulary. A language is the flash of the human spirit. It's a vehicle through which the soul of each particular culture comes into the material world. Every language is an old-growth forest of the mind, a watershed of thought, an ecosystem of social and spiritual possibilities. And of the 7,000 languages spoken today, fully half are not being taught to children. Effectively, unless something changes, they will disappear within our lifetimes. Half the languages of the world are teetering on the brink of extinction. Just think about it. What could be more lonely than to be enveloped in silence, to be the last of your people to speak your native tongue, to have no way to pass on the wisdom of your ancestors or to anticipate the promise of your descendants? Yet this tragic plight is indeed the fate of someone somewhere on earth, roughly every 2 weeks, because on average, every fortnight, an elder passes away and carries with him or her into the grave the last syllables of an ancient tongue. And what this really means is that within a generation or two, we will be witnessing the loss of fully half of humanity's social, cultural, and intellectual legacy. This is the hidden backdrop of our age, and it doesn't have to happen. Now, there are those who quite innocently say, well, wait a minute, wouldn't the world be a better place if we all spoke the same language? Wouldn't communication be facilitated? Wouldn't it be easier for us to get along? And my answer to that is always to say, what a wonderful idea. But let's make that universal language Haida. Let's make it Yoruba. Let's make it Inuktitut. Let's make it Lakota. Let's make it San. Let's make it Quechua. And suddenly, native speakers of English in particular get a sense of what it would mean to be unable to speak their mother tongue. Now, there are other people who say, wait a minute, haven't languages, come and gone throughout history? Well, of course they have. Babylonian is no longer spoken in the streets of Baghdad, or Latin in the hills of Italy. But again, the biological analogy is useful. Extinction in nature is a natural phenomenon. But in general, speciation, the evolution of new forms of life, has outpaced species loss over the last 600 million years, making the world an ever more diverse place. By the same token, when the sounds of Latin faded from Rome, they found new expression in the Romance languages. But today, just as plants and animals are disappearing in what biologists recognize as an unprecedented wave of extinction, so too languages are dying at such a rate that they leave in their wake no descendants. Over 600 of the languages of the world today have fewer than 100 speakers. Some 3,500 are kept alive by a fifth of 1% of the global population. By contrast, the 10 most prevalent languages are thriving. They are the mother tongues of half of humanity. Fully 80% of the world's population communicates in one of just 83 languages. But what of the poetry, songs, and knowledge encoded in the other voices? Those cultures that are the guardians and custodians of 98.8% of the world's linguistic diversity. Is the wisdom of an elder any less important simply because he or she communicates to an audience of one? Is the value of a people a simple correlate of their numbers? To the contrary, every culture is by definition a vital branch of our family tree, a repository of knowledge and experience, and if given the opportunity, a source of inspiration and promise for the future. When you lose a language, MIT linguist Ken Hale remarked not long before he passed away, you lose a culture, intellectual wealth, a work of art. It's like dropping a bomb on the Louvre. But what exactly is at stake, and what, if anything, should be done about it? A number of books over recent years have paid homage to the global sweep of technology and modernity, suggesting that the world is flat, that one does not have to emigrate to innovate,